are over. And there he is with thebigspur.com. Hey, man.
Hey, what's up?
We're ready to go. I was just talking to Clark Cox about the golf practice facility. Did you hit any out there before teeing off on Monday?
No, I didn't get a chance to practice anywhere before Monday. Played around in Somerville actually a couple weeks back.
Oh,
played pretty well, and so that was my tune-up.
All right, it was you, Wheezy, George Wynn, Connor, and Pat. So did you ride with George? I'm assuming Connor and Pat rode together.
No, I was actually in the car with Connor Shaw.
Oh, were you?
Okay. Yeah, I was driving him around, and I got to admit, first of all, I pride myself as a good driver in a car, a real car, truck, SUV, van, whatever. Like I drive those well, but for some reason on a golf cart, I'm not a great driver. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because like the governor's on there, and sometimes you catch a hill and it'll slow you down, and I smack the pedal too hard, and so I was a little. That was probably the most nervous part of my day, aside from playing with three excellent golfers. And I was more worried about just trying to keep Connor Shaw in the cart and not sending out a father and Gamecock legend out onto, a bed of pine straw somewhere because I hit a root or whatever.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Did Connor? Connor's not a very critical guy. He didn't happen to criticize any of your driving efforts, did he?
No, but I caught him one time when he was like taking a swig from his bottle of water or something, and I thought it was like, I thought it was kind of like waterboarding him with for that type of like the cart lurch. And I was like, oh my god, dude, like get it together, Hale. So yeah, that was probably the rockiest part of my day. No pun intended. It was a good time. Connor's an excellent cart mate and a real friendly guy, as I'm sure a lot of folks have come to know over the years. So it was pretty cool getting to spend a few hours in the cart with him and playing with him and Wheezy and DeMarco. Like I said, those guys are really good at golf, way better than I am.
I know.
Sure.
It kind of hurts your feelings a little bit, like when I played with Pat, but the thing about like great golfers like that is they're very understanding of guys that aren't on their level. Like they're not looking at you like, man, this guy sucks. No, they don't do that at all. It's like they're trying to be helpful. They're just out there playing. It's guys like you and myself are harder on ourselves than you. Like you're being harder on yourself than they are. You just probably don't realize it sometimes. You feel like you're letting them down, but you're really not. They don't really care.
Well, to my credit, I did hit the ball pretty well. I couldn't putt worth a damn, and I'm usually pretty solid on the greens, but I was embarrassed with how that turned out. But I hit the ball well, and I guess the good part about playing in a captain's choice with three guys who are way better than you at golf, like there were a lot of times where I would hit first, and like I'd hit a good shot, like whether a par three or like something around the green, I'd hit a good shot and be like, nice, hell yeah. Then like at least two of them are inside my ball, and thanks.
Yeah,
but I miss the play. Then I try not to injure Connor Shaw when we're riding to the next hole.
Well, it sounds like he's okay. My understanding is things are going fine for Connor. He who ended up winning? Did Sterling's group win it?
Oh, yeah.
How about his scooter?
Yeah, it's like a motorcycle type deal.
Yeah. This is the Hall of Fame game.
Sorry to cut you off. His group was actually right behind us. So not only did I have, arguably the best quarterback in school history riding with me in a cart, and a 10-year NFL vet and George Wynn, who's like one of the most important people in Gamecock football that nobody really even knows about. Again, all great at golf. Then a guy who's about to get inducted to the NFL Hall of Fame, who's also great at golf, riding up on us and like seeing me hit the ball too. So I had quite a gallery.
Oh, what a week for Sterling. I'm not sure how much you got to talk with him at the Hall of Fame games tonight, the Chargers and the Lions on NBC and Peacock for anybody that would rather watch it over there. But he'll be inducted on Saturday officially for the first Gamecock ever to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We've mentioned a couple of times this week. Hopefully, the university is planning something at a ball game this fall to honor the great Sterling Sharp. But now that you've seen him play golf, it's hard to figure out whether he's a better golfer or was he a better wide receiver. Right? He's just one of those people who can kind of do whatever he's doing and do it at another level. So I don't know, but I thought y'all might win it. And I said that on Monday, and then Meredith Taylor texted me, and she said, no. Any tournament that Sterling Sharp is playing in, he's going to win it. And obviously she was right. So congratulations to Sterling. Well, let's start with, the point of the event, obviously, Hale, is it's a brilliant move. Coach Spurrier did it. It's a very easygoing time to get some media folks out there and get coaches and personnel and kind of let everybody get to know one another. And you get to kind of have some offhand conversations and off the record conversations. And then, of course, some on the record type conversations. What was the most interesting one that you had that you could share?
I would just say, hearing Joe DeCamillis talk about his guys, and like he was saying to me how, Coach Beamer's not experienced, having all his kickers and punters and from the previous season, they're replacing all those guys. Like Joe D's been through that. He went through it with the Falcons when they had to replace Morton Anderson back in like 2000 or whatever. Then just I don't know. It's that to me, and it's interesting to me because that position, that particular aspect of the game. Like we haven't talked about it enough, I don't think. We always talk about the defensive tackles and what that's going to look like, and all these receivers and Rasul Faison and all that stuff. Like, and while those things are certainly important, kicker and punter, like that's a really big deal too. I mean, how close does South Carolina come to making the college football playoff last year? Well, having a kicker who's a little bit better might have been what put them over the top. So now they've got to worry about that again and worry about punter, which I don't think they're too worried about it. And then that's part of why I thought hearing what Jody had to say to me on the record was interesting with Mason Love. But yeah, it's a very underrated aspect of what this team is kind of dealing with from a storyline standpoint, question mark, concern, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that because, it's kind of like umpires in baseball. You really don't want to be noticed and nobody talks about you until you don't do something well. You miss a call or something like that, right? And, with it under Shane Beamer and even prior to Shane Beamer, I know that, Coach Muschamp early on remember he kind of tossed Parker White out there. I think his first career kick was like 75 yards or something like that. Wando grad, you can go Wando. But I mean, even prior to Shane coming here, I mean, you think about Elliott Fry and then Parker and these guys. I mean, there's a great history of kickers now over the last 20 years or so. I mean, my friend Josh Brown, Ryan Suckup, probably the best looking kicker to ever come through here. No disrespect to anybody else, and so on and so forth. And I think that it does get forgotten sometimes by fans and by those probably who cover the sport. That for the most part, outside of a few missed kicks here and there, and there's been some games that have been lost because they haven't made them. But largely, when you compare the kicking game of the University of South Carolina to their peers in the league and other places, they've been in a really good spot for a long time. So it is kind of uncharted territory or uncharted waters, or however you want to word that.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Herrera is unfortunately going for a lot of people, he's going to be remembered for the LSU kick, the one against Alabama, but he made a huge kick in the Clemson game.
Yeah.
That has been forgotten.
That counts.
Maybe because it's been overshadowed by Lenore Sellers and what he did to win the game. But it's one of those deals where if you're doing your job, like you said, if you're doing your job, nobody's really going to notice. But as soon as you make a mistake, that's gonna be remembered.
Well, even thing like we're talking about the kickers, who everybody sees the kicker, but I mean, I can go back to Ike Crowfoot, who played for Coach Spurrier, and I mean, just last year, Hunter Rogers was on a bunch of preseason watch lists and things like that. Those are the type of lists that generally get glanced over. They get glanced at and then looked over by fans because, as you pointed out at the top, and you're 100% right on it, Hunter Rogers wasn't a tailback or a wide receiver or a quarterback or a defensive end or something like that, or I guess an ER now in the terms of South Carolina. He just snapped the football. If you have a bad snap, you become the center of attention all of a sudden. And but I would say this too, right, Hale? You spent time around Joe D. He was one of the best special teams guys in the NFL for years. Shane Beamer speaks for himself. Those two together, not to mention, Clayton White used to be a special teams coordinator. Like, there's a lot of guys on this team who understand special teams, and they're able to kind of creatively figure things out. While I do believe it'll be a challenge, whatever probably the best outcome of that challenge could be, these guys will probably get there. It might not be the best it's ever been, but certainly it won't be closer to the floor than it is the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, Kai Kroger, I think everyone can remember the punts and the trick plays and all that, and I'm sure remember some of the snaps that he got to hold for field goals and extra points that were not always the best, and he was amazing that way. That's probably the most overlooked aspect of all this stuff is what he did there. I mean, he was excellent doing that.
Kai Kroger in the 2022 Clemson game will maybe the greatest punting performance game long in the history of the program, if you ask me. All right, one of those positions we just brought up, the ER, the edge rusher position. I know you'll meet with Shane today, and players will talk today. I know you spoke with coaches last week or Monday. You'll speak with more coaches today. But the more that at least I personally kind of generally look at that other edge position, actually all of it, and we know Dylan Stewart, put him aside. I was reading some of the comments that you wrote on the Big Spur from Clayton White on Monday, almost kind of comparing Brian Thomas Jr. to Kyle Kennard. Maybe I read a little bit too much into it, but I feel like there's more separation between Brian Thomas Jr. and a lot of those other guys than maybe I'd initially thought.
Yeah, it wasn't so much a comparison. I can't remember exactly how Clayton was asked a question by someone else, but it was just kind of like, hey, what can Brian Thomas Jr. to help fill in for the production that Kyle Kennard has left behind? And
okay.
And I can't remember if he was asked to compare them as players, but they're very different just physically. Kennard taller and bigger, and I would guess just plays a little stronger, just given that he's a bigger guy. That's kind of how it can go typically. Not big in physics, but that just seems like it would be right. But I think with Thomas is he's quicker and plays really tough, and not that Kyle Kennard didn't by any means, because obviously he's a tough dude. But they're just different in play style and what they bring to the equation. Like, and I think what was kind of telling to me was Clayton was asked about Damon Clowney specifically, and he mentioned how he thinks Clowney is a little more comparable. That Damon Clowney is a little more comparable to Kyle Kennard from a size standpoint, and how they kind of play the game, being more of like a sturdy, setting the edge against the run type of guy. But Clayton also mentioned George Wilson, and said something to the effect of like, hey, both of those guys are going to be factors for us, which makes sense to me when you see, and I think I've talked about this before, is like Clowney, if you're into paying attention to the Pro Football Focus grades, it's pretty stark how much better Clowney is against the run versus what he does as a pass rusher. then you just flip those numbers, and it's like, all right, George Wilson's like excellent as a pass rusher, really dangerous that way, but against the run, not nearly as good. So I think they'll be able to sort of complement each other that way, and how they're able to interchange them and use them almost as like one player, but just depending on the situation and opponent and all that stuff.
Hey, by the way, I was looking at some pronunciations this morning, and I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm not in the I don't like being in the industry of being corrected publicly. I'm always like, hey man, there's time and place for that. But I was shocked by this. I have been saying Damon Clowney. It is actually Demon Clowney.
Demon. It is Demon. Okay.
Yeah. I was going through the media guide this morning, and I was like, because I already corrected myself on Umazulu, and then Reno Rome, the walk-on tight end, who I feel like kind of has a porn star name, but I was saying Reno Rame, and but it's actually Reno Rome. So we have Beamer on Monday morning on our show. I'm going to ask him about that.
All right, we'll leave that one part out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I won't say anything to him about that.
Don't bring that part up.
Yeah, I won't. But I was I thought I was saying Demon. I was like, I don't think he's Demon, but he is Demon. That's crazy. Isn't it?
My bad.
No. I did the same thing, man.
I'm apologizing to him, not to you. Don't get me wrong. You said Demon when I think the last time I was on with you said it, and I was like, he's not just calling him Demon. Like, there's no way that you're making that mistake.
Well, I thought I had made a mistake. That's the thing. I have said Demon, and then I said Demon, and I was like, he's not Demon. And then went back, and so anyways, you know us guys, we can't get things right. But I think so. On Clowney and Wilson, they were kind of late adds to this deal, right? And I know that Clowney has kind of had an adventure as far as where he ends up and things of that nature. But you've got those two guys. You've got Isaiah Augusta, the tailback out of Colorado, formerly at Arkansas. And these are all dudes that were kind of late to the party in the transfer portal, Hale. Yeah. I'm like really, really interested and intrigued in all three of them and their roles and what type of players they will be for Gamecock football this year, because generally speaking, it feels like when you add a kid late, especially out of the portal, he's just, you're just kind of taking what you can get. But I'm not so sure that that's the case with any of these dudes.
I mean, yeah, I think they're going to have roles on this team. I mean, if you just look at it from the standpoint of like the staff consciously doesn't try to just take anybody just for the sake of filling a spot. And granted, if your back's against the wall like they were with the running back spot, and to a degree with the defensive end spot, maybe that kind of forces you into some things, generally speaking. But they're very just these three particular guys that you just named, like they fill very specific needs and roles, especially like defensive end. If Jaylen Brown is unable to play this fall, like they certainly needed one other guy. And like I said a second ago, like these two guys are pretty complementary in what they do on the football field and their skill set. So yeah, I mean, I kind of equate it to back before transfer portal, NIL, and recruiting was just a lot different than it is now. Like, there were several guys over the years, and the only one that I can think of right off the top of my head, but I know there were more, who were added late to like a recruiting class and ended up being pretty prominent players. And Xavier Legette is the one who comes to mind for me. And granted, it took him a few years to get to the point that he had in 2023 with that season, but he played a lot. He got opportunities. He just didn't always make the most of them, but he was still a very visible player for Carolina, especially one who was added late. So yeah, to your point, I think that could be in play with these guys that you're talking about.
Can I ask you to do me a favor? Can I quickly get in a break? We got to pay the bills around here, and I hate not paying the bills. And then can we come back and get into a few other things? Want to talk to you about the wide receivers and stuff like that too, and then a couple other things, and then we'll set you free so you can go get some lunch. Is that okay?
That'll work. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hale generally has some answers, but it's hard to ask him to give them to us right now because we haven't actually seen him play, have we, Hale? But I think I mentioned yesterday that I believe truly one of the neater storylines in the SEC, quite frankly, has to do with Mike Shula and Lenora Sellers. Mike Shula has an extensive history in developing quarterbacks, as we know. And Lenore Sellers could maybe, who knows, but some have mentioned it could be the top pick in the draft next year. We certainly believe he's going to have a chance to be one of the top few quarterbacks taken in 2026. So I'm not sure how much time you spent around Coach Shula, and I know that you'll see him a little bit more today and in camp and things of that nature, but in your time around him, just as an outsider, like we are, kind of looking in, do you have any comparisons or contrasts, or could you compare and contrast Dowell Loggins to Mike Shula, aside from scheme and all that stuff? We're going to figure all that out. I just mean the person and how he communicates about his players.
Yeah, they're a little different, I guess. Shula is a little more laid back and easygoing. I think Dow's not quite as laid back or easygoing. I don't think he's high strung by any means, but Shula's like a different level that way. You just watch his interviews when he's standing in front of the podium. I think he kind of gives that chill kind of vibe, for lack of a better way to put it, and that to me is the difference, and it's mostly because Shula is just so that way. I can't remember where I heard Beamer saying this, but I think it was something at SEC Media Day, maybe radio interview he did with somebody or on TV, that he was like, yeah, I think pretty much everyone who's within our program and works for South Carolina football likes me. But I know everybody loves Mike Shula. Like, everybody loves that guy, is what Beamer kind of said. And I can see why. He's just pretty easygoing, easy to get along with. And, obviously that's probably a little different when you're coaching and talking about ball. But just the guy, that's the general sense that I've got.
It's it's so interesting because, I mentioned we mentioned last week, I believe, Hale, or right after SEC Media Days. I'm not saying me and you, but one of the there's always these silly questions, as you know, that come out of those things. And one of the questions that went to Lenore Sellers was about pregame music, and he was like, "No, I'm not really looking for anything to hype me up. I'm listening to something that calms me down," which that didn't get any run anywhere. It wasn't a headline. It wasn't a talking point with anybody. Those aren't the juicy things that people are looking for. And then trying to understand quarterbacks and how they kind of approach different games and different moments. And you look at what Lenoris did last year in some huge moments, you can kind of see how mentally he's able to slow things down. And that response kind of equated to that. And so now you've got a guy, as you pointed out, and I agree with you. I think that's my takeaway from Mike Shula. He's very, I think, thought out, and calm, cool, and collected. And when you've got your quarterback who's like that, and they seem to get along just fine, actually more than fine, like greatly fine, the best you can probably do it, you feel like you potentially could have something special there. One of my dear friends who's on this show every week during football season is a guy named Steven Garcia. Him and his OC didn't exactly get along. That happened to be the head coach. They do now, but they butted a lot of heads then, and sometimes that would relay itself out to the field. He never butted heads with Mangus, but certainly with Coach Spurrier. So, like, the relationship isn't always there, is it, Hale, with the starting quarterback and the offensive coordinator? Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't there between Dowell and Lenoris. That's not what I'm implying at all. I know there was one. But when you get a new guy with the same starting quarterback, even if he's just been promoted, sometimes it can be a little tricky. We're going to talk to Shane about it, but my understanding in the last, since December, these two guys have been, they've been locked in together step by step, and And obviously, starting next week, we're going to maybe get a better feel of what that might look like.
Yeah, I mean, Shula knows what makes Lenoris tick. He knows what Lenoris does well, not just because he's gone back and watched the tape. Like he's standing there with him on the sideline and talking to him before a series started, or talking to him as he's coming off the field. So they've been through those types of experiences before, and they're going to know what to expect this fall. One thing I'm kind of interested to find out, and I don't know if it's been revealed or not, but where Shula is going to be on game day, whether he's going to be on the sideline or up in the booth calling plays, because I believe he was on the sideline for the bowl game.
He was.
I wanted to try to keep some continuity that way, because there had been so much that changed from the Clemson game to the bowl game that I think we kind of lost sight of in some regards with some of the issues they had on offense of how different things were within just the period of a month. So I want to say that Shula has kind of hinted at that he would go up into the booth this fall, but I don't know for sure what that's going to look like. So that's something I'm interested to find out here maybe today when we see the coaches and players, and just how that dynamic's going to go.
Yeah, I wonder if they've made a decision on that or not. The wide receiving core, Hale. I was talking to Michael Flint last night about this, and he brought up a really neat point in the fact that I know that Donovan Murph, arriving later than the other guys, but so there's 6 of them, right? There's 6 true freshmen, and then we've got returners. There's more than 4 returners, but the 4 that we point out all the time are certainly the ones that seem like they're going to get the most playing time from the dudes that have already worn the uniform. But like Flint was saying, what are the how do you set the expectations? Like you're not going to run out 10 wide receivers. Like that's just not going to happen. There's only one football. And so when you get all those guys who are able to come in the spring, right, Hale, and you got to see them in the spring, we got to see some of them in the spring game, and then they spend their time here also in the summer, all those young guys. They're all, I guess my understanding is pretty tight, and we know that they're all talented, but we also know that they can't all play, and they know that better than everybody. So that spirit of competition, and I was reading some of the comments from Mike Shula that you wrote about on the Big Spur. For anybody that hasn't read it, I would go check it out. They all get along, but the competition level has amped up even more because there's just only so many. There's only so many spots to go around, and I'm really curious if you've learned anything more about this summer with the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and how they've been working, and how these older guys, who by the way are trying to hang on to their spots, how that whole unit is kind of working together and improving.
Yeah, I would think my biggest takeaway from the summer is, like, while the freshmen are all, like, people need to be getting excited about those guys for sure. Like, they're going to be really good players. But the 4 scholarship guys who are back, like, don't just write them off. Like, don't forget about any of them.
You're right.
Nick Harbor's obviously going to play a ton because he played more than anybody last year at that position. Mazio Bennett obviously is going to play a bunch. And Jared Brown got a lot of opportunities last year. And when he could just have the ball in his hands and hold on to it, like, he's pretty good with it once he gets going upfield. I think people need to keep that in mind. Like, he's probably going to have some touches. And Dre Jacobs, who was arguably the best player in the spring game, regardless of position, is someone who I think's had a really good offseason and is going to make some noise too. So, hey, that's 4 guys right there, and I think all those guys are going to play, if not start, or 3 of them will maybe start, but they're going to play, I believe. So then we're talking about, all right, how many other receivers are actually going to get on the field?
Yeah.
And typically it's maybe 6, at most 7 guys over the course of the game. And that 7th guy certainly isn't playing a whole lot. So if you look at it like that, like 6 to 7 guys are getting on the field with the offense. realistically, how many wide receivers are catching the ball over the course of a game? Not all 6 or 7 of them, usually. Right. Not in a grinded out SEC game. So when you're starting to look at stats and, hey, there aren't a lot of freshmen who are catching the ball as much as maybe we thought they should or would, then people are going to start to say, well, what's going on? Why aren't these guys playing more? Mm-hmm. Well, then there are running backs on the team who are going to get the ball. There are tight ends who are going to play a lot, more than just one at a time, too. I think we need to remember how this offense has looked over the years. That's going to play a prominent part. And, oh, by the way, Michael Smith and Brady Hunter are probably going to be pretty good too, right? So I think you asked something about tempering expectations with this group, and I think that's the important thing, is to not get too wrapped up in how many of these guys are putting up stats early on, because realistically, it's probably not going to happen right from the get-go. I think they're going to have at least 2 guys that are playing a good bit, maybe 3 on offense, and then there are going to be special teams opportunities as well, either in the return game or coverage teams or what have you. But if we're just talking strictly numbers, which most people pay a lot of attention to, myself included, I think we need to collectively just kind of catch our breath and breathe and know that it's probably not going to look like, super awesome for more than a couple guys, if that, here early on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, they're going to want to redshirt as many of these guys as you can. I'm all for doing research and things like that for our program, but I can tell you one bit of research I'm not going to do, and I'm not going to go out and determine whether South Carolina has the youngest wide receiving core in college football. But I would venture a guess they're probably pretty close. So they've only got one guy, and Jared Brown, who's going to leave after this year, unless you get a transfer or unless Nick Harbor pops all of a sudden and then he's a draft dude. Everybody else will be back. Even these returners who returned from last year, I mean, Jacobs is a young guy. Bennett's a young guy, and they got all those freshmen. There is a way for talented freshman wideouts to get on the field. I know that it's been talked about with Nick Harbor and Jelon Kilgore as far as return guys and things of that nature. But special teams is huge for these dudes if they want to contribute. You can look at a guy like different position, but a guy like Mo Brown, who, quite frankly, in following this team, is probably my favorite football player on it because of his story with his family in the military and seeing him come in and work his rear end off. And last year he gets a scholarship and then promptly runs out and blocks the punt against LSU in the same week. There's another guy who's certainly going to earn more time this year. But, some of these young wideouts, that's how they can do that too, Hale. And you mentioned special teams earlier. They're having to kind of retool this whole thing. A couple of the tools might be in that room.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a cliche way to look at it, but that's how it goes for most football teams. And especially one that's coached by Shane Beamer. Like, yeah, you're going to have to earn your stripes a little bit, pay your dues, and to get a chance to pay your dues by playing in a football game on offense or on defense, you're going to, as a freshman, you're probably going to have to show some things on special teams and work your way up that way. And granted, circumstances can change things, so to speak. Like Mazio Bennett was playing a lot on offense last year and didn't do a ton on special teams, but that was just because of the circumstances. But I think that, again, like that's it, and it with some of these receivers, like a lot of these guys are just like really good football players. Like Malik Clark was kind of a DB recruit before South Carolina was even looking at him as a receiver, because Torian Gray recruits Brock Hill. It was like, this guy plays a little defense and I like him a lot. And he's got obviously the build of guy that I want to take and plays tough. Like, so I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing Malik Clark making tackles on special teams at some point this fall. I mean, I don't know how likely it is that Lex Cyrus plays, because he's going to be behind Mazio Bennett, and Brian Rose been kind of the talk of the class since he's gotten here. But Lex Cyrus was a really good defensive player. Jaden Sellers played receiver at South Florence, but he's just a straight up football player, kind of like his brother. I could see all those guys at various points in their career, whether it's this year or next year down the road, doing things on special teams without the ball in their hands, not being kind of the center of attention that way.
One of the staples of a Shane Beamer team, as we have discussed, is special teams. They, since he arrived, lead the SEC in block kicks, and it ain't close. 16 in the last 4 seasons by your Gamecocks. Georgia and Tennessee are tied for second with 9. By the way, Carolina also leads the SEC in turnovers forced in Shane Beamer's tenure under Clayton White, 88, which is 2 more than the Alabama Crimson Tide. When did you start covering South Carolina? What year was that?
Will Muschamp's first season, 2016.
Okay, so that was about 4 years after Luke Doty committed to the Gamecocks. Of course, he's still here. Yeah. I actually believe, and I'm picking on Luke. Luke is like one of the most outstanding people ever, along with his entire family. The pride of Myrtle Beach. Or North Myrtle Beach, or Myrtle Beach, Beach. Yeah.
Myrtle.
I do think this is going to start to get a little bit more play, right? A little bit more run. I would, maybe venture a guess if we, had to put out some crazy depth chart prediction today that he might actually be the backup to Lenore Sellers. Now, can that change in the next 4 weeks? Well, of course it can. And will it? I'd say there's a decent chance that it does. But what have you learned about Luke Doty and what he's been doing this summer to prepare as a quarterback?
I mean, not a whole lot new per se, but let's not forget that he was going to be the starting quarterback at the start of the 2021 season. I mean, we know he played a lot in 2020 during that disaster. Almost called it a shit show of the season, but I guess you can call it that of the season. And he had some tough moments in that season, but I think it helped him grow as a player, and he did have some flashes, and there was some genuine excitement about him having a chance to start at the start of the Shane Beamer era. Then somebody stepped on his foot during a team period that August. And here we are. Unfortunately for him, it's been that's how it played out. And I don't think he's really I don't think he hates the way his career's played out, because he's been here all along and made the most of his opportunity for sure. But after seeing him play in the spring game, it was kind of a reminder. It's like, yeah, this guy's a pretty good quarterback. I'm not sitting here saying like, hey, when Norris goes down and Luke's going to step in and they're not going to skip a beat. I definitely don't think that would be the case. No. But as far as backups go, like, not a bad guy to have, especially because Cutter Woods has never played in a college game. His last actual football game was South Carolina High School State Championship, and Aaron Noland, his last actual football game was 2 years ago in high school. I don't remember or know off the top of my head where his team finished up his senior season, but he hasn't played since then. But Luke Doty, even though he hadn't played quarterback really longer than those guys, it's been a while, but he's got the experience in the league, and he's been around this program for a while, and he obviously knows the offense, or he can pick up offense quicker than probably just about anybody, because he's been in how many different systems now, like 10 different offensive coordinators and play callers or what have you have come and gone since he's committed and been a part of this program all these years. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how that position plays out. And I guess it sort of goes without saying that nobody wants to have to figure out what it might look like if somebody's got to step in long-term at quarterback that's not number 16.
His value, most all of Luke Doty's value is not publicly seen by a lot of people, but what he does in that locker room, how he helps guys along, how he helps kind of teach these young guys. I hope he ends up coaching one day. Luke Doty could have left the University of South Carolina and gone other places and been superstar at the quarterback position or wherever. And he said, no, I committed here. This is my home. I want to be in Columbia. I'm going to finish my time as a Gamecock. So he's been legally able to drink for almost 16 seasons. Luke Doty is still he's a great kid. So I hope everybody's pulling for Luke Doty this year in whatever role he ends up playing for the Gamecocks. Hale, we'll let you run on that note, man. I go back to this time last year. It's kind of deja vu, pretty much the day of camp or the day before camp. And I remember getting you right after, I think, the first day, or maybe it was second day, somewhere in there, where media got to watch 4 or 5 periods. I said, well, Hale, you were at practice. What'd you see today? And you said, a lot of stretching.
Yeah.
So give us the stretching reports tomorrow morning. Everybody's going to be fired up to see who's the most flexible athlete on the team.
Hey, if we see anything that has 22 players on a field, 11 on one side and 11 on the other side, I will be stunned if we see anything remotely resembling that over the next couple weeks.
I'm going to tee up Shane on Monday morning and say, hey, so here's I got a visual. This is what the first team looks like out there. Just see what he says.
Yeah, ask him if he can share some thoughts about your projected depth chart on the offensive line.
I don't have one. Who was it? I think it was Jordan. So we're just picking here. All right, man. Have fun, Hale. I know you're going to see the guys in a little while. Thanks for all the time and for everything that you do. And we'll catch up with you next week. We're getting closer to finally being able to actually play this sport and talk about what we actually see on the field.
Love it. Appreciate it, man.